Welcome. My name is Tim Chang, and I serve on the board of the directors of Reimagine. Reimagine is a nonprofit organization catalyzing a uniquely powerful community of people of different backgrounds, ages, races, and faiths, and no faith, coming together in the hopes of healing ourselves and the world. We specifically support each other in facing adversity, loss, and mortality, and at our own pace, actively channeling life's biggest challenges into meaningful action and growth. Our website is www.letsreimagine.org. So, as some of you may know, this month, Reimagine hosted a series on collective trauma and transformation. And tonight's Grief Circle by and for the AAPI community is a fitting coda to those discussions. Everyone here is welcome, but I want to underscore that this is a dedicated container to center the feelings and voices of Asian Americans. For those of you who don't identify as part of the AAPI community, we encourage you to bear witness, listen, and learn in allyship. Reimagine wishes to recognize the efforts of Reimagine collaborators Holly Chan and Elizabeth Wong. They co-hosted last year's AAPI Forum on Family Caregiving. We also want to give a shout out to Lily Liu. After the mass shootings in Monterey Park and Half Moon Bay in January, Lily provided the spark that ultimately became the Grief Circle that Tony and Magda are co-facilitating tonight. Now, the majority of us are here from the United States, also known as Turtle Island by Native Americans and their allies. Wherever you are, I ask you to join me in acknowledging Indigenous communities in North America, their elders, both past and present, as well as future generations. I'm stating this because it's a step to continue dismantling the ongoing legacies of settler colonialism and white supremacy. We're interested in knowing where you are located. Please put that in the chat. And there's a very helpful map. It's native-land.ca, and you can check that out to learn about locations of Indigenous people. So here's a bit of housekeeping before we start. For those who wish, click on the CC icon to get a live transcript of what's being said. And you can save the chat by clicking on the three dots in the chat box. Feel free to send Andy Ingall a note in the chat if you have any technical issues. He might be able to help. Everyone who registered for this workshop will get a follow-up email with recording too. And now I'd like to say a few words about the duo that put this event together and serve as our hosts. Tony Pham is a heritage Buddhist facilitator and healer that occupies the intersection of queer and BIPOC identities. He's a second-generation Vietnamese American whose parents arrived in the United States as refugees from war. Tony, who goes by Butterfly in spiritual spaces, offered a Dharma talk and guided meditation on compassion at the 2023 Dalai Lama Global Vision Summit. They previously received a Fulbright scholarship to conduct research in Vietnam. Butterfly has also completed death doula and nonviolent communication training. This year, Tony began facilitating grief gatherings on Reimagine's platform on the 13th. And we'll also share a link for that in the chat. And Magda Saimanfang Sang Un Peng is an artist, contemplative care practitioner, and the founder of BACI, BACII. Driven by the experience of losing her mother and arranging for her death care, Magda became a certified death doula and launched BACI as a platform to integrate death into our lives so that we can better support ourselves and those we love. Her life and death work is guided by her Laotian last name, which means the light of the full moon. She recently co-facilitated Reimagine's Mother's Day gathering and hosted our first room for grief gathering, which provides a monthly space to those in need of a community of other grievers. Thank you both so much.
Hello and welcome everyone. We're so grateful to be gathered here tonight together to share this space. And before we get into it, just a little overview of what to expect. We're going to share some community agreements so we can really set up this space for us, by us. And then Butterfly will be giving us some context, education, and history. And from that, we're going to move into a short breath work to ground ourselves and transition into grief spaces where we'll go into breakout rooms to be heard, to express, and to listen to one another. And then from there, we'll come back into the room. We will have some space for some sharing. And then we will also open up the space to all AAPI community members that would love to share any kind of resourcing that you're doing for the community. We'd love to hear from you as well, and ways in which that we can support one another. And then if we have some time for it, we'll open it up to some questions, and we'll close with some offerings and ancestral self-care practices. So again, thank you so much for being here. And very briefly, I'm going to share some general agreements that we have here today. The first is to commit to confidentiality, to enable and support authenticity, courage, and vulnerability in our space together. We want to contribute to and hold a brave space that is free of judgment. We want to relate to each other as fellow human beings with complex feelings. We want to speak from one's own experience and not be the spokesperson for any group. We want to refrain from giving advice or treating this as space for therapy or fix-it sessions. And lastly, we want to be mindful of how much space we take up. And Tony, I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you, Magda. I'm feeling appreciation and gratitude to you, to Tim, to Andy, Reimagine for inviting us to be able to co-create this container. And thank you to everybody in the community and allies for choosing to be present. I'd like to go ahead and invite us to first arrive and ground and really show up for ourselves and one another. I know we're all coming from different places, different activities, and I do teach meditation and compassion, and so I'd like to offer that to everyone right now. It's just a brief way for us to come together. I will guide us, and our short sit will begin with a ring of 3 bells, and then I will bring us back with a ring of 3 bells and transition from there into some context of how we've all arrived. And don't worry, if this is your first time, if you have a steady practice, an invitation to access beginner's mind, and you're welcome to have your eyes open with a soft downward gaze or eyes closed. Invitation is to turn off all notifications and distractions and get comfortable, and we'll get started, and I'll guide us all along the way. Just invite you to check in with yourself. Begin to notice the ground beneath you, whether you're many floors up or in a chair, softening, allowing for how ultimately you're held by the earth. We're all held by the land. So even though it can sometimes be easy to have a story of like I have to do it all on my own. Perhaps that's not true. Perhaps that's never been true, because the land nourishes us and supports us and holds us. So just taking a moment and without forcing it or efforting it, bringing awareness to the experience of being with that solidity, that stability that's offered by the earth as your feet touch the ground or the surface. Bringing attention to the area where that contact is made. So simple, always there. And I invite you to bring your attention to the experience of your breath, if that feels supportive. If that's not accessible or safe to you in this moment, replace the word breath with sensation. And so if working with breath, I invite you to begin to notice, where is it most present in your body? Perhaps it's in the stomach or the chest or the nostril. And without judgment, without managing or controlling, just observing. And if you're working with sensation, that can be the experience of your feet touching the ground, or how your skin feels against the clothing you're wearing. Nothing to do except witness. If working with breath, perhaps noticing, what's the temperature? What's the speed or frequency? Does it feel shallow or deep? And again, there's no right or wrong. Your body knows how to breathe or sense. You can just make a choice to bring awareness to it. And as you continue to breathe or sense, I invite you to place your hands in a comfortable position in your lap or at your side. As you continue to breathe or sense, notice the rise and fall of your belly. It's always happening, always there. And just observing the experience in your body as you breathe in and you breathe out. Softly, gently. I invite you to Bring your awareness to your heart space. Notice how there's contraction, how there's expansion, and how one is necessary for the other to exist. The ebb and the flow. And perhaps there's feelings of impatience or patience, of curiosity or boredom, of excitement or hesitation. Any and all of that is welcome. And we're just maintaining our awareness on the breath, on the sensation. Breathing in, breathing out. I invite you to bring your awareness to your shoulder, an area of the body in which so many of us hold, and we might not even be aware of it. So if it's supportive to you, you can join me in just intentionally shrugging up your shoulders and then letting them go and releasing. Noticing the space between the ears and the shoulder. Doing it multiple times. Circling if you want. You know your body. And let's bring the awareness to the face. And while maintaining attention on breath or sensation, noticing if there's any holding in the bottom of the ears, and giving yourself permission to let go there. Noticing if there's any holding at the corners of the mouth. Letting go of any story that you have to perform in any way in this moment. Letting go of any holding in the corners of the eye, in the center of the forehead. Breathing in and breathing out. We're just gonna be in silence for a minute. Invite you to trust that I'll ring the bell when it passes. So give yourself this minute to be with your breath, to be with sensation, and to ground before we continue. And gently invite you to flutter your eyes open if they've been closed. Take some active breath. Bring some movement into the body. Perhaps it's stretching the arms, circling the neck, whatever is going to serve you. And invitation to turn on screen if you're able, so we can help to co-create that container of community. And as we come back together out of the being with ourselves, it's my honor to offer some context for the paths that have taken us to this present moment. Earlier, it was spoken of how events just earlier this year, at Lunar New Year, prompted a call, a desire to come together in community. And sadly, tragically, this is not new. I want to name and acknowledge and create space for how our bodies hold intergenerational trauma. And so from the beginnings of the United States as a country, our peoples have been here, and from the beginnings, I mean, from the beginning of settler colonialism, with Filipino sailors arriving around 1750, before the Revolutionary War. What many consider to be the first wave of immigrants being from China around 1848 as miners and railroad workers. During that time, it is known that there were physical assaults and murders, and yet they were never prosecuted because there was no evidence, because it was illegal for a Chinese person to testify against a white person in court. There was the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882, barring laborers from entering the country. The Bellingham riots of 1907, when a mob of white men attacked and beat immigrants from India. That was followed by the Asiatic Barred Zone Act of 1917 and the Immigration Act of 1924, which effectively excluded almost all immigration from Asia with a few exceptions. During World War II, in the United States, the government interned Japanese people, including citizens. That was followed by colonialist wars in Korea, in Vietnam. The US government was involved then in civil wars in Laos and Cambodia. That's the 1950s through the mid-1970s. At a time when people felt that Asian car manufacturers were threatening the US automotive industry, Vincent Chin was killed in Michigan in 1982. Following 9/11 in 2001, there was racial profiling of South Asians. And that's just a very brief synopsis. So I'm going to invite the consideration that if a government doesn't view someone as equal, is it a surprise that individuals within that system will also share that belief and act from that place? And so during pandemic, COVID, the murder of 6 Asian women in the Atlanta area by a white man, the shootings earlier this year in Monterey Park and Half Moon Bay were by Asian men. And it's complicated. And I want to offer up that systems of oppression, such as racism, are so pernicious because they can become internalized. And I'm going to pause there because that's a lot. It's significant. And how it's important for us to learn how to care for ourselves amidst all of that heaviness. And with that, I'm very thankful to invite Mangda to offer a practice here.
Thank you, Butterfly. And we're naming our histories on this land. We're naming these tragedies that impact not just ourselves, but each other, our communities around the world, to really acknowledge it and find ways to tend to it. So that's really our intention of being here together, is to create that space where we can come together and tend to our grief in community. And before we do that, and we break out into our spaces to again be heard and listened to, and to just acknowledge how it may be impacting us and our families and communities, we'd like to offer a short breathwork practice. It's called box breathing. And simply, I'll be guiding you through this practice where we will inhale for 4 breaths. We will exhale for 4 breaths after pausing for 4 breaths. And we'll go in a box just like that. Inhaling, pausing, exhaling, and pausing. And while you're doing this, you can visualize yourself creating a box. And maybe you could even take this a step further. Perhaps you're creating a box of safety, or a box of love, or a box of ease. Whatever it is that you need tonight, I'd encourage you to invite that into your box and your space. Perhaps you're putting a box around our community or our world for safety and protection. And from there, this is also a practice that you can take on your own time and your own days. It is really helping to alleviate anxiety, to invoke some ease after everything that was just named by Butterfly right now, and perhaps even what you're going through in your own life. So this is a practice you could take throughout your days moving forward. So if you'd like to join me in this, I'd invite you to, again, if you feel comfortable closing your eyes, please do. You could settle back in to this moment, and this space here together. And we can begin by inhaling for 1, 2, 3, 4, holding your breath for 1, 2, 3, 4, and exhaling for 1, 2, 3, 4. Just take a pause for 1, 2, 3, 4. And you can inhale for 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold your breath for 1, 2, 3, 4. And exhale for 1, 2, 3, 4. And pause for 1, 2, 3, 4. Do this twice more. Inhale for 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold your breath for 1, 2, 3, 4. And exhale for 1, 2, 3, 4. And pause for 1, 2, 3, 4. You can take an inhale for 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold your breath for 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale for 1, 2, 3, 4. And just pause for 1, 2, 3, 4. And you can sit here in this box. And if you didn't set an intention yet, you can do so now. Whether it's for yourself, or community, or world at large. And when you're ready, you can come back to this space and open up your eyes. Just kind of notice how you're feeling in this moment. And what we'd like to do now is we'd like to get into community. So we will let you know that the recording will stop during these shares, and that anyone that has RSVP'd, or if you need to go and come back, you'll get this recording as well. And before we go into our breakout rooms, we just want to acknowledge that this is very much a peer-to-peer support space. It's not intended for therapy. So if someone in your group would like to even set a timer to ensure that everyone is able to share, we'd love to encourage that. We want to make sure that everyone that wants to speak is spoken, and specifically from the AAPI community, we want to ensure that everyone has the space to do so. And I believe that we're ready to go into these groups unless anyone has any questions. And Butterfly, Tony, Andy, and I are all here to support you. So if you have any questions, you could directly reach out to us as well. And
Yeah, quick check-in question. Do we want to just continue not recording for the sharebacks, Magda, or what are your thoughts on that?
I definitely want to ask the whole group, but perhaps we just stop recording if we want to allow some shares for folks, and then we can resume. So why don't we do that?
Looks like something's been posted in the chat. And so, Magda, do you want to read it or just let people read it? I don't know if everyone's like on a computer or a phone.
Go for it.
Sure. So this is from Tita Meso, who joined but had to leave a little early. So on Reimagine's event platform, Meso is holding a conversation on Thursday, June 22nd, around the understanding of home and its loss, recreation, and this relationship to cultural bereavement for immigrants and refugees. This is one part of Meso's support for intergenerational families with migration and assimilation experiences as we strive to understand our complex experiences in order to build new possibilities, perspectives, and pathways. And there's a link to where you can find out more. Sign up for that event on June 22nd by Meso.
Amazing. And it looks like we also have some Reimagine events that would be supportive coming up. Andy, do you want to share those?
Sure. First, thank you both for holding space for this community. Both Tony, Magda, and Tim. I want to paste here in the chat our next vigil, which is coming up next Wednesday. Let's see. We have two wonderful poets, Eileen Miles and Sophie Robinson. I hope you can join us for that. And also, I want to give a special shout out not only to Tita, who had to leave, but Lily Lou, who's another dear Reimagine collaborator who often hosts events on our platform. And I want to give a shout out to Reimagine staff who showed up tonight. We have Zubin Desai, Brad Wolf, Derek Hosberg was here, and Nicole Tan. Thank you all. That's all I have to share. I'm going to hand this back to you, Tony, and to you, Magda.
I just want to note that folks are sharing in the chat extra resources. So if it's there, let us know. I believe that everyone's getting a recording and a copy of the chat, so it'll be there as well, in case it's not accessible to you right now. And Butterfly, would you like to close us out from the opening that you started with us at?
Oh, I'd be happy to. Thanks for the invitation. Yeah, and Magda and I and Tim can follow up with Andy in terms of next steps, like in terms just capturing, synthesizing resources. And just want to invite us all to once again connect to ourselves and one another. Invitation is to, if you feel called, everything's optional, just place a hand on your heart, or if it's part of your practice, bringing hearts together, hands together at a heart, just with a slight bow. And I'd like to acknowledge all those who have come before us, all those that hopefully will come after us. Lineages of blood, land, and spirit. And honor the bravery that it takes to be human, and how part of the humanity is, to the degree that we can, feel all the sorrow, feel all the joy, and that we each have a choice to turn towards healing, towards kindness, towards growth. And so may this time together help us to cultivate wisdom for our own lives and for everybody that we come across. May we continue the work of self-care. May we continue to dismantle from colonialism and other systems of oppression. And may we more and more often breathe into our heart and know that because of the very truth that we exist, we are worthy, we are free, and we are loved. Thank you, everyone, so much for being here.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.